Hello and welcome into this week's episode of the Everyday Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Hagley. This week's episode, the topic centers around performance, right? Everyone talks about increasing performance, improving our performance, but what really is performance? And it can mean a number of things to a number of different people. Everyone always talks about, how do we improve it? We're increasing it. We're building and developing our performance. But how do you define it? How do you know if you're actually improving? What if performance to you is different for someone else? And so ultimately, that's what I want to discuss today is, defining performance and how this word is often misused. It tends to be a buzzword and what performance means to different people. You'll hear people on social media. You'll hear people on podcasts. You'll hear commercials and you'll see advertisements that discuss increasing our performance. Everyone wants to perform better. But depending on who you ask, performing better can mean a world of different things. A weightlifter or a power lifter, performance for them is lifting more weight, beating their competitors. A husband or a father, performance for them may be being able to have the energy to keep up with their children, to be able to interact with their families. A hybrid athlete may have marathon performance goals, may have high rocks performance goals. A Navy SEAL has mission performance goals. Can they perform on their job? A firefighter, can they perform on their job? And so the central question to all this is that performance isn't just what you can do, but it's how well you can do it, be able to repeat it, and to be able to do so under pressure. As a buzzword, performance has almost lost its meaning. Again, going back to marketing, going back to social media use, it's a catch-all term. All right, we're going to train for performance. This supplement can improve or boost performance. But beyond lifting heavier, beyond running faster, right? What does that truly mean to improve your performance? Because performance isn't just a one-off output. It's not just a single variable. It's not just a single time point measurement. But ultimately, it's the integration of your capacity. That can be endurance, aerobic capacity. That can be strength capacity. And then also your control, your power and your precision. You can be strong in the weight room. You can see your squat numbers increase. But how does that translate? You can be fast and you can measure it with laser timing gates. But how does that translate? An analogy that I love to use is like a Formula One race car. Right? The car is the capacity. It has an engine, it has the chassis, it has the tires. It's been engineered and over-engineered to develop the best aerodynamics. Everything defines what's physically possible for that car. That's the physical side. For you as a trainee, right? Your strength, your muscle, your VO2 max, your endurance, your mobility. But then we need the driver. This is the skill. The driver has the coordination. They know the timing. They know the track. They know how the car handles in certain turns and at certain, phases of the track. You have the coordination to perform your sport. You have the timing down. You have that decision making, that pacing, that efficiency. Ultimately, it's your ability to use what you have built. So we've got capacity and then we've got skill. At the end of the day, the best race car on the day may not win because the driver may be nervous, may make a split-second decision that results in a crash. right? Performance happens when the driver and the car evolve together. They work together in a rhythm, in control, right? In training, you're always developing one or both, skill or capacity, but you're not developing them both at the same rate. Early in your training, when you first began getting into the gym, you got strong fast. You developed muscle at a rapid pace. And that wasn't because your body changed, but because your brain learned how to move, how to perform the movement. Over time, the car, or in this case, your body, it catches up. Muscle hypertrophy, tendon stiffness, the neural adaptations that occur. Okay, so now let's zoom in a little bit. Let's start to define capacity. It's what you physically possess, right? Your strength, your endurance, your mobility. And then skill, right? That's how you use it. Your technique in a movement, your technique in your sport, your rhythm, your mental control. Again, if you take two athletes, they may have the exact same muscle mass. They have the exact same strength on the barbell back squat. But one can perform at an NFL caliber level, and the other is a world-class powerlifter. Do you think that powerlifter can go and compete at the NFL? Their performance is different. Their paradigm is different. Right? One's learned to express their strength in that single movement and compete against other people doing that exact same movement, while the other can express their strength on the football field. Ultimately, at the end of the day, right, strength isn't just about how much strength you have, but it's how well you can access it, what that translates to in the real world, in a real application setting. All right, so here's kind of the slow rhythm of adaptation. And that is that adaptation is very, very slow to occur. Okay, you get those initial big boosts in strength, the initial muscle mass increases, maybe a little bit of power because you're learning the movement, but it takes a long time to fully catch up. All right, your capacity, aerobic capacity, strength capacity, develops through consistent, steady adaptation. It requires stress, and then it requires recovery, and you have to multiply that out over months, years, decades. Skill, on the other hand, improves through practice. So through repetition, through feedback, through attention to the details. A lot of people start to get frustrated because their progress feels slow. But the early gains that you see in the weight room, they're often neurological, not structural. Again, real change is going to take time, and that kind of time that lasts, it happens very, very quietly. And when we come down to it, the best training often looks incredibly simple. I know I've talked about this before whenever I discuss minimalist training, mundane training, doing the same things day in and day out, keeping things simple. It shouldn't be flashy. It shouldn't be complex. That doesn't mean that we can't do things that we enjoy. We can't add in things, but guess what? The basics work incredibly well. I was actually having a conversation with a university professor just last week, and we were discussing the differences of coaches that are these social media influencer coaches, and how even though what you see on social media looks crazy, it looks different, right? They're doing odd movements. They're doing odd mobility drills. They're doing, flashy agility drills, right? Those things look good on social media. But if you actually sat down and talked with those coaches, they are still having their athletes squat. They still deadlift. They still bench press. They're still doing the basic things to develop their strength and ultimately at the end of the day, their performance. You just don't see that because it doesn't look good on social media, right? The complex and the flashy and the mundane and the basics, those both move things forward, right? Your skill and your capacity. And that's ultimately what we get down to, right? The basics, that you're doing them very, very well over time, they build your performance fluency. From a movement perspective, that can be squatting, that can be bench pressing. It can be pushing or dragging sleds for speed, for short bursts, 10 meters, fast you can, heavy weight. Or you can drag a sled for 30 minutes and develop your aerobic conditioning and develop the musculature and the tendons in the legs. Right? You can do tempo runs. You can do zone 2 runs. Again, it's simple, but it's brutally effective. And these tools that we use help to develop and build that coordination and that control under load. Most people are understimulated and they're underfocused. They don't do the right things, the basic things that they need to do, but they dabble in those, right? They may do them, but they're boring. But they do the flashy and the fun, the things that they see on social media without really any progression typically. And so they're not getting the required stimulus to actually push adaptation. They're getting movement. They're still working out, but that's not true training. And again, going back to our topic of performance, it's not brute force. You can't force this stuff through. It's being able to express movement fluently, right? It's not what you have, it's how you use it. How well your mind and your body can communicate, and especially under pressure. That's one of the biggest elements, right? Being able to express your strength and express your power when the stakes are high, when the lights are bright. So it comes down to developing performance is not just physical, but it's very, very mental, and being able to tap into both sides. That's what truly makes a great performer. Now, what does performance mean for different individuals? Again, if you saw an advertisement that said, this supplement boosts your performance, or you see a strength coach on social media that says, train with me, let's learn to perform better. At the end of the day, what does that mean? What comes into your mind? What comes into your mind is probably different than what comes into my mind, than what comes into a NFL player's mind, that comes into an NBA player's mind, that comes into a firefighter or a police officer, or that comes into your parents' mind, right? They want to be able to perform better. But for your parent, performing better may be being able to walk up 5 flights of stairs. For your grandparents, it may be able to get up off the couch and go for a 5-minute walk. Let's contrast that with the NFL player. Obviously, for them, it's being able to perform to run faster and to evade tacklers. Performance for a running back is different than a wide receiver, than is different for a quarterback. Okay, because you need the skill component and you need the physical component. For the everyday athlete, for the recreational athlete, the person who wants to look good and feel good, performance for them may be muted in a way, right? They don't have these grand aspirations of being able to evade a tackler, right? But they still want to be able to perform for themselves. And you may have high level goals, that things that are maybe beyond what you would typically expect for just your recreational athlete, right? It may be that I want to be able to jump high, and I'm 40 years old, and I want to look ripped, and I want to be able to squat 2 times my body weight, and I want to be able to do 20 body weight dips and 10 body weight pull-ups, and be able to run a mile in less than 8 minutes. That's going to look different than an endurance runner who they don't care about having 6-pack abs. They don't care about having 21-inch arms. They don't care about being able to squat 2 times their body weight. Performance for them is being able to perform on the day of their race. They want to run as fast as they can, and they want to outlast the competition. So performance for everyone is very individual. To close this out, right? Performance isn't just about building a better car or becoming a better driver, but about being able to get them to work together and defining performance for the individual. Performance can be jumping higher on force plates. It can be squatting heavier. It can be being able to get up out of the chair without pain. It's different for everyone. And at the end of the day, right, capacity without skill, if you are a high performer, is wasted potential. You could be the strongest. Okay, look at the NFL Combine. Is the best top scorer in the NFL Combine always the best football player that comes out of that? Many times not. Okay, because the skill isn't there. So in order to develop our performance, we need to think back and make sure that we are evolving both the skills and the capacity that we need to develop. All right, if we're competing in an event, we need to have the skill to compete. Physically, mentally, we need to be able to focus and stay calm under pressure when that time comes. And we need to be able to step it up when the time comes and maybe act a little bit out of control, but guess what? We can maintain that. So next time that you train, next time that you look at a program, next time that you talk with the coach, ask yourself, right? How are we defining performance? What are the things that you're going to do to measure my performance? And how do I know that I actually can perform better at the end of the day or at the end of this program? Right? Ideally, there's testing involved. Ideally, we're monitoring certain variables to be able to pinpoint that. And again, the variables for you may be wildly different than your neighbor, than the coach up the road, than everyone else out there. We all have different ideas of what performance means to us. And so making sure that we have a grasp on that and knowing what we're training and what we're trying to develop and what the end goal is ultimately the most important element here. So I thank you for tuning in today. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you're not already, join the Performance Edge Network, where we break down topics related to performance development, programming, strength training, conditioning, and all the above. This is Everyday Strength. I appreciate you for tuning in, and I will see you next week.